All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. We're coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And my name is Rob McConnell. Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, I am here with you in the X Zone. Then the show is repeated in its entirety from 2 a.m. until 6 a.m. on the Talkstar Radio Network, the X Zone Broadcast Network, and our vast and growing family of broadcast affiliates across Canada, the United States, Central America, the Caribbean, South America, the Pacific Rim, Asia, India, Africa, and Europe. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is Connie Huft, and Connie is the author of a new book that's out called Know Thine Enemy, A Guide to Intelligent Deception. Connie lives and works in the Big Sky Country in Montana, a former auctioneer, radio personality, and a registered nurse with experience in cardiac and emergency room nursing, who does paranormal research from a Christian perspective in her off-season. She has appeared on internationally syndicated television and various radio shows, as well as being a published author. Her diverse experiences mix a solid scientific background with a very humanistic type of speaking style, human and animal compassion, and a practical real-life understanding for the human condition. Her website, www.christianparanormalanswers.com. And Connie Huft, welcome to the X Zone.
Well, thanks for having me, Rob. It's pretty exciting, and hello to all your listeners.
Tell me, Connie, you auctioneer, radio personality, registered nurse, and now investigator of the paranormal. What drew you to the paranormal?
Well, I guess maybe I just don't know what I want to be when I grow up yet, but I've actually always had a fascination and a draw to the paranormal. Mm-hmm. Growing up in Montana, we have lots of ghost towns, and I love a good ghost story. You can't help but look at all the stars in the sky and wonder, are we the only ones here?
Yeah.
There's just all kinds of questions, and I've always been a spiritual person by nature. I was raised in a Catholic home, and then when I was 10, my folks became born-again Christians. So I've always had a very Christian, strong spiritual upbringing, which really goes hand in hand with the paranormal because it's a spiritual nature.
Now, in your bio that I read when you were kind enough to send us all the information, you say that you were a victim of witchcraft. How did that happen?
Well, that's really when everything started because I was in my early 20s. I was in my first year in college, and I had an experience that literally challenged my whole Christian belief system, and my life literally came crashing and imploding in around me. I almost committed suicide over it.
Oh, heavens.
And I was what people who study the dark arts would mockingly call a dupe or an ignorant, an unwitting, was absolutely clueless. What happened was that I had rented a room from a self-proclaimed clairvoyant who said she had been a top spiritual advisor for the actor Shirley MacLaine when I was in college. And this woman was captivating. She was beautiful. She was in her mid-30s, blonde hair, blue eyes, not something that you would, especially a kid from Montana would go, ooh, you're a witch. She was married to a blue-collar worker. She had 2 kids. She had this great 3-level house, and I just rented a room in her basement thinking,
Right.
hey, this is great. I'm finally getting out of the dorms and going to live out on my own. Well, from the minute I entered that house and entered that room and rented that room, my life began to absolutely implode. And what I mean by implode, I'm talking, paranoia, demons coming out of closets.
Oh, boy.
Things that were happening that I really thought I was going crazy. And I had no explanation for it, and I didn't know who to turn to and who to talk to about what was happening to me.
All right, Connie,
And
we're going to
this
have a
went
bit of a
on.
cliffhanger here because you and I have to take a 2-minute commercial break. We'll continue this fascinating story with our guest this hour, Connie Huft, on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break. Connie's website, www.christianparanormalanswers.com. She's the author of Know Thine Enemy, A Guide to Intelligent Deception. Connie and I return on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and Talkstar Radio. Don't go away.
Second time around should be easy. Break down the walls between me and you so we can see completely how easy love can be. I know it was you who said it. Repeated the call.
Well, no one told me about her, the way she lied. Well, no one told me about her, how many people cried. But it's too late to say you're sorry. How would I know? Why should I care? Please don't bother trying to find her. She's not there. Well, let me tell you about the way she looked, the way she had tan, the color of her hair. Her voice was soft and cool, her eyes were clear and bright.
Connie Huft is my special guest this hour. Her website is www.christianparanormalanswers.com, and Connie is the author of Know Thine Enemy, A Guide to Intelligent Deception. Now, Connie, before we went to the commercial break, you were telling us about this lady that you rented a room from who seemed to be quite normal, and she said she was also a spiritual advisor to Shirley MacLaine, but you found out very shortly after moving into that house that your life was imploding. So take us further with your story.
Well, you don't go from being a happy-go-lucky kid, in rural Montana, have no precipitating factors, to all of a sudden your life falling apart. And I ended up having progressive nightmares, recurring nightmares every single night. I had demons coming out of the closet. I ended up completely renouncing my faith in God. I mean, I just flat said, God, I don't want anything to do with you anymore.
Wow.
Because of the literal hell that I was living. I ended up having an episode of sleep paralysis where I was completely surrounded by demonic entities, and I believe I died, and they were taking me to hell. At that point, I cried out to Jesus, and I had an angel come to rescue me. And my life, I was completely delivered from that point on. And so that really got me down this path to what the heck just happened to me. And I didn't feel like I could go to the church with this problem. I felt that they thought I would be crazy. For somewhere along the line, demonic activity is like Christianity's dirty little secret, and they don't want to talk about it. And what I've done is since I've always had all these questions about the paranormal, is I decided, gosh darn it, I'm going to go find out for myself. And I unfortunately went down some wrong paths during my 20s looking for those answers, but eventually came back to there's only got to be one answer and one right answer. And that's when I started to study the scriptures in depth to find out all my burning questions about the paranormal.
Why do you think that the church keeps the negative side, the demonic side, such a little secret?
Because I think a lot of it is we've gotten so darn contemporary in our teaching. We don't like to deal with the dark side of things, and yet you can't open a page of the scripture without finding that that's what we're up against.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a travesty. It truly is, because I think that's why a lot of people are leaving the church as we speak. They're wanting something real. They're wanting something raw. They're wanting someone to explain their problems and their encounters, and then they're wanting a solution for it.
Exactly. What's wrong
and
with
we're
that?
not giving that to them.
But yeah, see, I can't understand that either, Connie, because if you have a problem and if you talk about it, you get it out into the open, you've got all these people that are going to church with you, you have your clergy who can help you with that problem. Talk about it, face it. Don't hide it in a closet, because all you're doing is you're putting people's very lives and souls to risk.
I agree. I think, unfortunately, I do believe that a lot of it is based on a stigma in the church. They don't want people to think that we're crazy, and yet we're the ones that are supposed to have the spiritual answers. We're perceived as the ones to know the spiritual realm. And yet we've gotten so far away from that, and we've gotten so far away from truth that we've lost focus and we've lost sight that we're supposed to be helping our fellow man instead of turning him away and saying, you need to seek mental help. And that, to me, is unacceptable. And that's why I came up and decided, you know what, I'm part of the body of Christ.
Yep.
I need to do something about this myself. I'm not going to place blame on the church. If I'm part of the body, then I need to be doing something about it. And that's part of the reason why I wrote this book and have the website, and people can email me and ask me all the questions they want, and I'll try to answer the best I can.
So what answers did you find to your implosion that you were facing? You know, the answers pertaining to your sleep paralysis, being surrounded by demonic forces, and then, you know, calling out and having an angel come to rescue you. What answers did you find?
The answers that I found are that all of that is very real. It wasn't a figment of my imagination. It wasn't a chemical imbalance in my body. It wasn't something that I ate during the day. It wasn't some strange idea from something I got on some TV program. This is very real, and it was a very real power. And this is what I found, is that these things do exist. They're very powerful, and they are taught about in the scriptures. There's explanation after explanation of what is really going on in the scriptures. But you can't just do a surface rendering. You can't just go look up witchcraft. Because what you'll find a lot of times is you'll find a verse that says, don't do it. and that's everybody's response is just, oh, don't touch that. Don't go there. Well, that's not good enough, especially in this day and age of information and trying to find answers. And the Bible gives those answers. You just have to know how to look for them and how to study it and find them on a much deeper level instead of just doing a surface rendering. And it's very complete. And that was the thing that amazed me. And not only that, it strengthened my faith 100%. I couldn't believe how complete the scriptures were.
Connie Huft's our special guest, Exonation. Her website is www.christianparanormalanswers.com. She's the author of Know Thine Enemy, A Guide to Intelligent Deception. Why aren't pastors preaching on the paranormal? Shouldn't this be part of what is the message coming from the pulpit is about, that there is evil, there are negative entities, and for goodness sake, teach the parishioners and the members of your church what to do about it. Don't hide it, and yet they do.
I agree, and hopefully, programs like this will encourage and empower pastors out there who probably have an interest in this, but have a fear factor. When you think about it, they're not equipped. They aren't taught this type of thing in seminary schools. And there is a huge fear factor there. I mean, imagine your pastor getting up on Sunday morning and having a sermon on ghosts or Bigfoot. Not only would you probably have half the congregation get up and leave in indignation without even giving it so much as a second thought, but then there goes half the revenue for your church. And then you might get reprimanded, and then you might get displaced or your position taken away. So it's a very risky business for pastors. And that's a sad thing. But with that being said, in the same breath, you know what? If the church does not stand up and does not address the public's insatiable appetite for the paranormal phenomenon, they're missing one of the world's largest mission fields out there. These people are spiritual seekers, and you just can't get much more pre-qualified than that.
And you know, the way I see it, Connie, is that they are forcing people to go to areas where they might get more harm done to them. For example, there's a lot of television shows on TV that deal in the paranormal, and it's all a bunch of bunk. They're not addressing the real problems. It's all for ratings. And yet so many people who are having the questions pertaining to the paranormal world are looking at these shows as the gospel because they don't get the truth anywhere else. And they go on the internet, and in my book, Connie, the internet is the largest septic tank we have ever created.
I really like that analogy because it's very hard to go through and distill the true information from the false information. And boy, I tell you, boy, isn't that intelligent deception right there. And yeah, that's exactly what happens. People get very frustrated, and if they're having a ghost or a demonic encounter or something in their home, and they run to the church thinking, hey, you guys are the spiritual authorities, you need to help me, and instead they're given, a psychologist card. Well, the next step is that they're going to go to a psychic or a medium or a ghost hunter to come in and help them with their problem, because they're the ones that believe them, for number one, and they're empathetic towards their problem. And so that immediately turns them away from the real answer, from Christ from the beginning. And they say, look, here's an alternative. And we can, maybe you might not be able to stay in your house, but we'll be able to get rid of the ghost for you, okay? At least somebody believes you. And then you have the path. And that's what happened to me, is I began to go down other paths trying to find those answers because I couldn't find them from the church. And I ended up coming full circle back going, I didn't find the right answers there. But what I found, I did find in the Bible, and it blew me away, and it completely answered all of my questions. But it's a matter of teaching people and letting them not be ignorant and asking the right questions.
Does the Bible does the Bible actually address topics such as witchcraft, aliens, vampires, ESP, ghosts, and the Great Pyramids, and other topics like that?
When I first started my research, I'm a bit of a skeptic, and you could not convince me that the Bible talked about these things. But when I really began to take away the surface rendering and really study it, certain passages in the original language, I was blown away by what I found. Let me just give you a quick example.
Sure.
So, I was a nurse, so I studied gross anatomy. You study the human body, and you can name all the parts, and you can tell what it's attached to. And this is very much like Scripture. Most people can name chapter, verse, book, things of that nature. But if you don't understand deep physiology, like how the body actually works, cellular structures, chemical, neural pathways, and this is the problem we have with the Bible, because nobody goes deeper than just going, oh, yeah, I know the story of Noah. I know about the flood. We need to go deeper than that and understand, why did the flood happen? Why did God do such a horrible judgment on this earth? And so we need to really go deeper into studying. And what I found, here's a perfect example.
All right, why don't we have another bit of a cliffhanger here, because we've come into our news break at the bottom of the hour. Connie Huft is our special guest this hour, X-Zone Nation. Her website is www.christianparanormalanswers.com. She's the author of Know Thine Enemy, A Guide to Intelligent Deception. And Connie and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and Talkstar Radio.
Well, no one told me about
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
I was walking home from school on a cold winter day. Took a shortcut through the woods, and I lost my way. It was getting late, and I was scared and alone. But then a kind old man took my hand and led me home. My mama couldn't see him, oh, but he was standing there. And I knew in my heart he was the answer to my prayers. Oh, I believe there are angels among us, sent down to us from somewhere up above. They come to you and me in our darkest hours to show us how to live, to teach us how to give, to guide us with a light of love.
Connie Huft is our special guest this hour, Exonation. She is the author of Know Thine Enemy, A Guide to Intelligent Deception. Her website is www.christianparanormalanswers.com. Connie, before we went to the commercial break with the news, we were talking about the Bible, talking about witchcraft, aliens, vampires, and so on. And you said that you have to dig deep into the stories. And I guess we can use the analogy that the Bible is so old that we all have to be archaeologists and take away the different layers of sediment to get at the real story and how it was perceived and how it was written and what actually took place, that it's not as simple as Noah and the ark and the great flood.
Oh, exactly. And you said that beautifully, because that's exactly what we need to do. There's so many different translations, and it's difficult if you don't understand the original language. And you don't have to, but there's a lot of programs you can go on and just, oh, that's what the Hebrew word means, and it's very different from our English words. But here's an example. I think this is a passage that describes the Great Pyramid, as we were talking about before. Isaiah 19:19 being the most notable, and this is the verse. In that day there shall be an altar to the Lord in the midst of Egypt, and a monument at the border thereof to the Lord, and it shall be a sign and a witness to the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt. Now, if you just read that, and you're like, okay, whatever, it's kind of talking about a monument somewhere in Egypt, but what you need to start to take a closer look, and it's telling you very specifics. In fact, it's telling you it's a great monument and that it's in the middle of Egypt, but it's also on a border. How could that be? Isn't that odd? But that exactly describes the Great Pyramid, because that sits in the center of Egypt and it's on the border of Upper and Lower Egypt. So when you start to compare these things, and if you do a heavy study of the pyramid itself, there's a lot of scriptural parallels there too. And that's what we do in the book, is I help people and teach people, don't just take a passage for what it says. Start reading it and go, oh my gosh, there's a lot of information in a very small amount of wording that we just overlook because it's familiar. And I want people to start thinking a little bit and questioning and digging just a little bit deeper. And just like you said, brush off those layers of dirt and dust and take a closer look.
Connie, what does intelligent deception mean?
Well, that's part of the title of my book, and I thought it summed up how the Bible describes Satan. The Bible actually tells us that we are up against one of the most crafty and subtle creatures ever created by God. And those two words alone, if you look it up in the Hebrew, have very specific meanings. Crafty means working that which is unscrupulous, cunning, baited, frauded, guile, deceit. And subtle means the intelligence that's applied to that craftiness and manipulative workings. So this means that we're kind of up against this horrible, manipulative, intelligent, narcissistic being that has ever been created. And he manipulates us. And because we're up against this intelligent deception, and especially as people, we don't like to believe that we can be deceived, but yet we're deceived on a daily basis. Just look at the television advertising out there promising all kinds of things. And this is one of the biggest problems, is that we don't question and delve into things a little bit deeper. For instance, you might have somebody who has an angel guide. Well, did they ever come right out and ask this angel guide if they serve Jesus Christ? And we just don't even think to ask. Well, gosh, we got an angel there. Why should we ask it a question? Did you ever question the voice in your head that's telling you to cut yourself? We don't test these spirits, and the Bible is very adamant, case after case, test the spirits, because Satan, this intelligent deceiver, prowls about seeking whom he may devour, and he loves to deceive people.
He's looking for the weak and timid.
Exactly, or the ignorant.
That too.
Like I was.
But, you know, is it your fault that you were ignorant at that point, or was it the system, the church theology that let you down?
Well, I think both. Had I been a diligent student of the scriptures, had I studied them a little bit more, I would have found those answers myself. But yes, you're right in the fact that nobody taught me how to do that.
Yeah.
Nobody said, gosh, you have questions about this? Let's go look it up. I don't have any problem with people watching Harry Potter, but did you sit down and talk with your kids and say, do you think God would really be happy if we watched this?
Well,
just nobody asked the question.
But when it comes to Harry Potter, if a child and a parent understand that it's fiction, that's one thing. To watch something knowing that it's fiction, that it's not based on any reality, I don't think God would have any problems with that, because he's got a sense of humor. Just look at the world we live in.
Boy, does he ever have a sense of humor.
So whether it's watching Harry Potter or whether it's watching Psychic Kids or whether it's watching the Flintstones, as long as there's no foul, as long as there's no misinterpretation, as long as children and adults understand that it's not real, it's when they start perceiving it's real, in my opinion, that's when the danger starts.
But let me ask you a question.
Sure.
How do you know we're not being deceived in those areas?
Well,
how do you know that that's not part of the ruse, that it is harmless fiction?
If your faith is strong enough, you know that in your heart. It's very simple. The truth is simple. Lies are complicated. And if you look at the simplicity of any action, and if you can understand it, then, that's one thing. But it's when you look at something that is too good to be true, and you start looking behind the scenes, and you start following the trail, the paper trail, the money trail, no matter what part of life it is in, it doesn't take very long for one and one to equal this is a scam, this is a lie, this is deceit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you got to ask those questions.
Of course.
And that's what I encourage people to. Ask those questions. And if you've got just a little inkling that something's not right, you need to dig deeper.
But you see, you've stumbled across something that has been long forgotten in the teaching of theology. We're taught to be sheep. The Lord is my shepherd. Now, sheep follow a shepherd without question. And I think this is what is happening in the year 2010 and in this new dawned age of new spirituality, or the rebirth of spirituality that I believe we're in. People are saying, well, whoa, wait a minute, hold on here. We're not sheep anymore. We want answers. And if you can't give us the answers, we'll find someone who will.
I agree.
Instead of the different religious organizations saying, well, wait a minute, hold on here, let's all work on this together.
I agree.
They say, well, fine, go. Free will. And there's another easy cop-out that so many organizations, religious and otherwise, use is, well, you've got free will. well, wait a second, hold on. Free will is great, but give me some guidance here.
Yeah. Yep. And that's why we have to be so careful anymore. And because we like to be led, a lot of times we don't question our leaders. And I do all the time. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, where are you coming from over here, bud? You know, I'm not reading that in my Bible here. Let me check that out. And that's what happens so many times in churches, is that we just take whatever the pastor says. I mean, if he says, I think half of my congregation needs to go jump off a cliff today and make sure you sign your life insurance policies over to the church.
Oh, look at Jonestown. That's exactly what happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, people get themselves into situations because they never questioned it. They never looked it up for themselves.
Here's a very harsh reality check for many people out there. Religion is a business today. It is a big multi-billion-dollar business. The Vatican is the richest corporation on this planet. They own more real estate than any other corporation in the world. And I have a problem with this because, Connie, if the church wanted to do so many wonderful things, liquidate, sell your property, give the money to the poor, the hungry, the sick, and the homeless.
Hey, you nailed it, brother. A man shall be known by his fruit, and that's the same with the church.
Yeah.
And we've gotten away from the principles that have been taught to us in the Scriptures because people don't read the Scriptures. Instead, they're following the leader. And this is where we get into trouble, because ultimately, the pastor's not our leader. Jesus Christ should be our leader. And that's where I come from. You know, look at the paranormal, and I look at these things, and I just have to stop and say, am I being deceived? Is this for real? I know the power's real, but who's behind the power? Who's playing the puppets here? Is it just in my mind? And these are all valid questions, and each person has to come to their own conclusions when they're studying these things. But instead, they just go, oh, so-and-so wrote a book. He's great. I listen to everything he says, but nobody ever checks it out. And again, I always encourage people, don't listen to a word I say. Go check it out. Go look it up for yourself and see what you find, because ultimately, you're the one who needs to be satisfied.
Can you just imagine this? The second coming of Christ. Christ decides to make his presence known and his return, Vatican City. Can you just imagine? I would love to have the microphone for this soundbite. He would probably look around and say, what in the name of my Father are you people doing? You've got it all wrong. You've got it all wrong. Instead of helping the people who come to church, what do? They take money from the people.
Yep.
It should be the other way around. Give it to them, because they're the people. Hey, listen, let me rephrase that. If you're well enough to do with what you've got and you can give to the church that gives to the poor and to the needy, I'm all for that 150%. But I am not for the church gaining all the power and all the real estate and all the money. In the archdiocese in, Boston, it has over $80 million in assets. Yeah. $80 million. And how many people are homeless in Boston? How many people are hungry in Boston? How many people need clothing in Boston? How many kids go to school in Boston without having a breakfast or a lunch?
And I agree 100%. And this is why I believe most people are leaving the church. They're not finding, if they are Bible believing, they're reading what the Scriptures say and how Jesus said to live, and yet they're finding this paradox. They're finding exactly what you described, and they're angry, and they're going, well, what the heck, man? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to believe? And so then they go looking for alternative forms of spirituality, because they're looking to fill that spiritual need. We're all spiritual beings living in physical bodies, and we're all wanting some kind of spiritual experience. And yet, if we don't find that truth for ourselves, we can get led down some pretty crazy paths.
That truth is all around us 24 hours a day. All we have to do is take off the blinders, take off the rose-colored glasses, and just take a look around us. It's there. The miracles that everybody is seeking, they're there. You don't have to go to these multi-thousand people going into an arena to see one of these televangelists perform all these hokey-pokey so-called miracles that are all staged, and so many people have been debunking them. They're around you. The smile of a child. Love between two people. Yeah. The birds in the sky.
Well, God is unchanging.
Exactly. You see, life is simple.
Yeah.
We complicate it. And it's about time where people started standing up and saying, I want to be counted, number one. Number two, I'd like some answers to these questions, please. And number three, let's get life back to where it should be. Simple and truthful. And I think that would be one heck of a great start.
Oh, it'd be awesome. Let's do it.
All right. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. Please stand by, Connie. Great having you with us here in the X-Zone. Connie Huft is our guest this hour. Her website is www.christianparanormalanswers.com. And the name of her book is Know Thine Enemy, A Guide to Intelligent Deception. Connie and I will be back on the other side of this break as the X-Zone wraps up for tonight. Here in the X-Zone, in our studios in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and Talkstar. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Don't go away. And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity of thanking all our guests tonight. We started off with Daniel Fazina. Randolph Rogers and I talked in hour number 2. Last hour, Carrie Hopkins and I talked about what everybody's name means to them. And Connie Huft is my guest this hour. She is the author of Know Thine Enemy, A Guide to Intelligent Deception. And her website is www.christianparanormalanswers.com. Quick question for you, Connie. Why should Christians study Satan?
Well, this is one of those questions that I love to answer, because I look at it from this way. If what would happen if our police officers did not study the abnormal psychology of criminal behavior? We would immediately say that cop was an incompetent law enforcement officer. And this is what Christians need to be doing. Police profile criminals.
Yes.
Christians need to be profiling the enemy. It's very difficult to understand anything in the Bible unless you understand the enemy. I mean, really, seriously, what is the point of a Savior if we don't have a Satan? What is the point of all that prophecy? What is the point of certain passages of Scripture where God wiped out an entire nation and their livestock? If you don't understand the enemy, it's very difficult not to understand those types of questions and wonderings about the Scripture. And this is where Christians need to get down and dirty. We need to get in the trenches, and we need to start sifting through some of this material and go, why did God do that? Why did he say that? What is the point of all this? And we can't do that without studying the enemy.
Once again, it goes back to the metaphor that I used before, where we have to be archaeologists when going to study the Bible.
Exactly. Yep.
Connie,
You got to get a little.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I said you got to get a little dirty.
Isn't that the truth? We all have to be the Indiana Jones of the Bible set.
Sure.
Connie, we've run out of time for tonight. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Let our listeners know how they can find out about you and where they can get a copy of your book.
Oh, you can go to the website, www.christianparanormalanswers.com. It's a little long, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
It sure is.
And just peruse through there. There's a link to Amazon.com, or you can purchase it directly from me, and I'll give you a signed copy.
Connie, again, thank you very much for joining us. I look forward to the next time you and I meet here in the X Zone.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Rob.
You take care of yourself now. Connie Huft has been our guest this hour. www.christianparanormalanswers.com. Well, that's it for tonight, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity of thanking all the production staff here at the X Zone Radio and TV show and our affiliates worldwide. And remember, X Zone Nation, if you have a child at home, give them a hug, give them a kiss, tell them that they are loved, because the children of today are the leaders of tomorrow. So until tomorrow night, when once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone, always remember to keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay